Hello, I'm Chris Street, and I'm looking at a scrapbook which depicts the early years of Cobb County Habitat for Humanity. I met Millard Fuller in North Georgia in 1985 at the home of friends in Northeast Georgia, where he had come to help begin their affiliate. And I was so much impressed with his vision of building houses for people and not charging them any interest or any profit, and building the houses with volunteer people. And so I said to him, I think I would like to see this in Cobb County. And he said, oh, well, you can do it. You can. And so he sent me 10,000 bulletin inserts for Habitat Sunday, which was happening in September of that year. I managed to get out several thousand of them, but it was difficult because it was a new idea and people had never heard about it. I went around to various churches interviewing ministers and telling them about our plan, and some of them were very negative. Several of them told me they thought it was a communist plot because you cannot build a house with no profit and charging no interest and having the people be involved in building it. You just simply cannot do that. This is a capitalist society, and that's the way we do things. I called a meeting at St. James Episcopal Church, and 55 people attended. 12 people went on the board, and one of them was James Dodd, who was a working contractor, and he was very helpful, helping us get organized and actually supervising a lot of the construction.
The meeting went exceedingly well. Chris was one, and she just said, if anybody's here, that would like to lead this meeting, come on up. And of course, nobody went up. And we suggested to her, you're it, just carry us through it and we'll follow you. And she started out and we went through it. And she established our purpose, how we would get involved, the way she thought that we should do it. And she set a meeting date. Meeting lasts maybe an hour and a half, and it was over. And she gave us a place that she thought we could meet. It was a little Methodist church that sit there near the very end of North Cole Street. And we met, and she says, okay, I told you all we'll need a chairperson or a president, and we will need an assistant, and we'll need a treasurer and a secretary, and we'll need somebody to supervise the building portion. Well, being in the building business, I decided, well, I can help in that area. And at the time, there was nobody else there, and that's what I did for 7 years.
Linda and Philip Beggs were in Macon, where Philip was getting his law degree. And when they came to Marietta, they had been told by an Episcopal priest there that they should join Habitat for Humanity. So they came on board, and Philip has actually done most of the legal work pro bono for this affiliate for many years.
I think I went to the second meeting after the first organizational meeting, where they were trying to divide up into committees, and we knew we needed a finance committee and a family selection and construction and so on. And I remember saying, well, I'll do anything but family selection and speakers bureau, because I didn't like to speak in public, and I was worried. I just didn't want all that responsibility of family selection. So I left as chair of the family selection committee and on the speakers bureau.
The first board meeting was at my home on December the 2nd, 1985. Plans were made, and we decided to start raising money and finding property.
In the early days, Habitat was what I would call a shoestring organization. We would have board meetings and talk about what color switch plates we should have, and really getting into the nitty-gritty. And over the years, of course, that process has changed as we have professional staff. We also do a lot more partnering now, and that's one thing we did early on with churches and other organizations.
We raised money whenever and wherever we could. Donations came in from civic group, churches, individuals, businesses, and there was a particular fundraiser called Raising a Racket for Habitat, which was held at the Old Town Athletic Club in East Marietta.
Money at one point in time just really started rolling in 25, 30 years ago when we started getting money, and it was a joyous day. It was something to praise God for and give thanks, and how can we best use this now?
When the company started building for us, they generally footed the bill for the equipment that was needed. And some of them even furnished the houses. Certain businesses would have their employees be responsible for building a house. And that would spread the idea of volunteerism, and they loved doing it. I was involved with spreading the word and education and trying to get community groups interested. I did speak to several organizations and churches about Habitat. And I planned the weekend warrior trips that we call them, that we would take to various houses. And at first it was mostly board members and a few volunteers who were doing the work, but eventually we got hundreds and hundreds of volunteers to help.
Chris was the one who knocked on doors, would never take no for an answer, and was such a driver to make sure we got the people on board, that we got the money in place, and really had so much energy and enthusiasm for Habitat. The first office we got was actually a room in an abandoned building, and it consisted of an answer machine. I would go by and check the voicemail regularly, and we maybe would have 3 or 4 phone calls a week. So the scale was so tiny and embryonic, and it's funny to think about that compared to everything that's going on now and being such a huge and prosperous affiliate. It's quite gratifying to think about those small seeds we planted.
My son, Kirk Street, was very helpful in helping me get this Habitat affiliate started. He helped me for 18 months when we ran the thrift store.
We had a thrift store on Lawrence Street, and it was an old bicycle shop that was there. I would take my truck. I had a blue pickup truck. I'd go around Cobb County picking up furniture, whatever people would donate. Some of them would come to the thrift store, and I'd pull up and, hey, I could use that at my house. Well, okay, let's go. Let's take it over to your house. You got it. A lot of times I would only have to unload it once.
The Merida Housing Authority would send people in who had just gotten a place to stay. And so Kurt would come in with a truckload full, and they would say, oh, I need that, and I need that, and oh, I can use all of that. And so I would say, Kurt, just follow them home. We didn't make a lot of money, but we gave away a lot of it, and we were happy to do that, especially to people who had nothing. Our first 2 houses were framed by the building construction classes at Marietta High and South Cobb High School, and they had to be moved on site. It occurred to me that there was a building construction class at Marietta High School. I had seen sections that they had built, and I knew that they were taught how to lay brick and concrete and that sort of thing. And so I talked with the building construction teacher, and he agreed that they could frame up a house on the school ground, but it had to be on that property. They couldn't go off the school ground.
All of the children in the high school, they built that house under strict supervision of adults. They did it on campus. It was not like out in the city. And it was a good thing for us, and it was a good thing for the school. Those kids learned a lot.
The 3rd and 4th houses were given to us by a construction company that was tearing them down to build new buildings across the Highway 41. And we moved those total houses, and that was really a job. One house was moved to Smyrna, and the other one moved to Marietta. The 5th house was an added responsibility because we were given a metal house by Vulcan Materials from Birmingham, Alabama, and it was shipped over and delivered in pieces.
That was a real experience for me because I had never, ever used materials to build a house out of steel. We always used wood. That house, it had steel studs, steel rafters, steel beams, and everything was numbered, an alphabet and a number. And those pieces had to fit exactly where the plan had called for them. It was quite an experience to work on a steel building.
It was a big breakthrough for our affiliate when we were able to acquire the property at West Spring Glen, where we had a subdivision. The economies of scale get so much better as you have that kind of property. So That was a big breakthrough for our affiliate when we were able to jump to that level. We felt like we had hit the big time.
We had to put in an extra street, and since I had the right last name, they named the street Chris Street. That's the only reason that they named it for me, because I had the right last name.
I was privileged in the mid-90s to lead the first all-women build house. It was called Women's Work. And so we partnered with a lot of women's organizations, and women provided all the leadership to put the house together. So women were in charge of construction, family selection, all those pieces. We did let men volunteer, but they just couldn't boss us around.
Roosevelt Circle was really probably one of the most dangerous areas in the city of Marietta. Drug trafficking, alcohol, gambling, prostitution, you name it. It was probably one of the most deprived areas we have. We were able to go to work, and in the process of doing those homes, we contacted churches all over Cobb County, not just in the city of Marietta, and all faiths joined in, and we completely rehabbed most of Roosevelt Circle. It drove the drug traffic almost out of that area of town.
What I remember about the early days of Habitat was the engagement that we had with the families. There weren't that many, and so Chris would take kids up to Glen Cove, and we would have little retreats for the kids.
My husband and I have a big old rustic cabin at Lake Rayburn, and we have had many groups there over the years, and it occurred to me that some of the Habitat children had never been in the woods or had ever been fishing or whatever, so I had a couple of camps there, one in 90 and one in 91, and the counselors were volunteers, and they did all the cooking, and the children were taught to swim and to canoe, and many of them had never been in the woods before. They didn't know that when trees rotted, they turned into dirt. They didn't know about mushrooms and katydids and crickets and all kinds of creatures that sang at night, which was terrifying to some of them. And when the crickets and the tree frogs and bullfrogs started up going harump, harump, they were terrified. So we stayed up one night with several of those little girls, assuring them that nothing was going to get them, that they would be all right. But those were several wonderful weeks. The happiest time of all is homecoming day, when houses are dedicated by ministers and by Habitat people, and keys are given to the new homeowners. And there's just nothing more exciting than seeing the family running into the house and running all around and finding their bedroom and marveling at the washer and the dryer and all of the kitchen equipment, because most of them have not had this sort of thing before. So it's really a grand day for all of us, for all of the workers and the donors. So if you ever have an opportunity to go to a Habitat homecoming day, please go. It will thrill you. It's wonderful. Looking back over these 30 years, I realized that hundreds of thousands of people have been involved, and I know that they have the same feeling that I have had. It's just been a grand experience, so I don't know how to thank the people who have done all this, except to say that I know that you know that feeling, and that feeling is indescribable, and it is what makes us happy. It's the feeling that you get from helping other people and serving other people, because I suppose that that's what our message is here, is that we are to be as good as we can and give as much as we can and serve as much as we can. Thank you to all these hundreds of thousands of volunteers.